Hey guys, this is Preston with another cheat code from White Metal Games for you today. Today we're going to be talking about Zenithal highlighting and pre-shading your miniature. And so this is an advanced technique that works best with the airbrush, but you can also do it by spray can with a bit not as fine results, but it still works. The basic idea is that we've got our primed black miniature here, and we're going to be taking white paint and spraying it from above at a downwards angle. And this is going to lay the white paint in a nice gradient over all the shapes on the black model. And it's going to create a fade in the values from white to black as we go from the top to the bottom of the shapes. And this is basically just going to simulate natural sunlight for the model. And it's going to lay a base layer for us to build all of our colors up from. This technique's great if you're using a lot of glazing and airbrush work, because after we lay this pre-shade layer down here, it'll give us all of our natural looking transitions and highlights, and then we can just go back with glazes through the airbrush or by brush to apply different colors to those transitions, and they'll look super natural, and it'll be pretty quick and easy once you get the hang of it, and it'll give you really great looking results. So let's get started. So here in the studio we like to use golden titanium white. This is a high flow acrylic paint, and this works really well through the airbrush. And, you just want to make sure it's shaken up really nice and well before you use it. And we're going to thin it down a little bit, but not too much in our airbrush. We've got our PSI turned all the way up to about 40 or so, and that's key for this technique. The higher our PSI is, the smoother and more mist-like the paint will appear as it applies over the model. We really don't want to have any kind of speckling in our white paint, which is something you can run into if you're using thicker paints. So what I always like to do is I like to take my glove and test it out on here first. So I'm going to spray my white paint. And you guys can see it's kind of speckling out a little bit. It's kind of got this starry kind of pattern to it. And so we're just going to add a little bit more thinner to it. Make sure it's nice and mixed up. Let's try again. Let's see if this is better this time. Alright, that's much better. See how it doesn't have that same kind of starry pattern to it? That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that nice, misty, smooth look. Perfect. Alright, so once you have your paint at the right consistency, you can start painting the model here, pre-shade. We're going to start off with what's known as a zenithal highlight, and this is basically just spraying the paint from above, from the zenith of the model, which is the pinnacle here. And so if you can kind of visualize the model at the base of a 45-degree angle cone, with the point of the cone being the base of the model here. The cone's going to extend up in both directions here. And as we spray the airbrush down towards the model, we don't want to exceed past that cone. So we want to stay kind of up in this general arc above the model. We don't want to go down to the sides or from beneath. We always want to be coming down from this kind of 45-degree angle cone. So we're going to start pretty far away from the model with the airbrush. Maybe about 8 to 10 inches away. And I'm spraying about 90% air and 10% paint here. And I'm just kind of applying a white mist of this paint to the model. And you guys can see I'm kind of like moving the airbrush back and forth. This will help dry the paint off as it builds up between layers, so it won't spider web up on you or pool up in weird ways. So when you do this, you also want to be in a nice ventilated area. This has a tendency to kind of mist up the room a little bit because you're spraying this really fine white paint. But this is acrylic paint, so it's not too bad to breathe in, but you might want to wear a mask just because it kind of smells kind of bad. So as we build up our pre-shade, our zenithal highlight here, you guys can see that the details are starting to appear on the model. At first, what was just a primed black model, you're starting to see the details begin to pop out as this white paint naturally settles on the raised surfaces of the shapes. And as it gets brighter and brighter, we can come closer and closer to the model with our airbrush. And as we do this, it's going to just make these values brighter and brighter. So we're going to get even brighter whites, and by contrast, the blacks will appear even blacker. So as I'm working here, I'm just going to slowly move in as we're just kind of building up the paint. And remember guys, this is like 90% air, 10% paint. I'm really not going overboard, spraying too much paint out at once. I'm going back and forth on the trigger here, kind of like back and forth. And that'll allow the air to kind of help dry off the paint in between applications and the layers. Yeah, you guys can see now his details are really starting to show up. And what this technique is going to allow us to do is once we place all the colors on here, those colors, these same kind of transitions from white to black are going to show through the translucent glazes and apply those same transitions to the colors. So instead of fading from white to black, if we apply a red glaze onto this, it'll fade from a bright red to a dark red. So this just makes sure that we have really natural looking transitions and highlights, and it looks very realistic. So as we get it brighter and brighter and start liking how it looks, we can get in closer and closer to certain areas. We're always wanting to focus mostly towards the face as the brightest point. 9 times out of the 10, the face is going to be the focal point of the model, so we want to make sure that's the brightest area as well. And so our pre-shade is always going to be brighter at that area. Also skin on a miniature, if you have skin, that's going to be brighter than, most of the time that's going to be brighter than the surrounding areas of cloth or metal. If you're using metallic paints to paint your metal, the pre-shade isn't really that important for that step. Metallic paints don't really apply as well as colored paints over a pre-shade. Now you can pre-shade with metallic paints to do some cool stuff with metallics, but that's an entire separate video there. Today's looking pretty good. So that's the Zenithal highlight stage of the pre-shade. And then we can kind of, we've kind of already begun the actual pre-shade stage as we've moved in closer and closer. But now we can really get in there, and I'm about 4 to 5 inches away from the model at this point. And I can really focus on certain areas that I want to draw attention to, or that I want to make brighter, or just give us better transitions and fades and stuff. And so, for instance, I could aim into under his bicep here, onto these his ribs, and kind of make it more of a dramatic transition. So I can kind of target that area there. And that really kind of just brightens up that spot where his skin is. Same thing to his head, make sure that's nice and bright. And then at this stage I can, if I wanted to with this crew, I can decide that I want to paint like the tips of his little quills here brighter than the surrounding areas, maybe have a fade going from dark to bright on the quills. And so at this stage I can come in to the tips of the quills and just aim directly at those, get those going. You can use the same kind of effect on power swords and power weapons, or like lightsabers and stuff like that. And then once you apply your colors over there, you can really make them pop. So yep, that's about it for pre-shading, you guys. So the next step on this model would be to come in with some different glazes with the airbrush to apply the different colors and tones onto the model. And we'd go on from there. So I hope you guys enjoyed the cheat code, learning about some Zenithal highlighting and pre-shading. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Preston from White Metal Games, and like always, put your minis where your mouth is.